So when I was 20, what I didn't understand was what my value was and how to assess what the market value of anything that I could create for someone was so that I could price myself well. One thing that you'll notice is if you just think you're coming in with the lowest price and the best price, you think that that's an easy yes for the people that you're trying to work with. It's actually not. It's often an orange flag, sometimes a red flag. If you come in well below market value, you're demonstrating that not only one, you don't think highly of your product, and two, you don't know the business you're in. So if you're priced substantially below what the organization is used to paying, then they're going to think you don't know what you're doing. And so you literally just flagged and signaled to them that you're not a professional to work with. You really need to do a little research about the industry that you're in, the different products you're producing, and the different value that that opens up for the organization you're serving, and figure out what the actual dollar amount should be within a range. And then assess the quality of your work, be honest. Of course, some of us are hypercritical. And then for you folks, I'm going to say be kind instead of be honest. But for the other folks who are more optimistic about what they can get, look at the range of what the market will pay for it, and then decide where you fall in that range based on the quality of the outputs that you produce. So that's the first lesson that I would teach to my 20-year-old self is know the market price. And for me, I was well under the market price, so I needed to raise my prices. The second piece of that first lesson was having a minimum contract amount. That's important because there's only 365 days in a year. There's only so much time I want to work or can work. And so if I'm spending all of my time with these little tiny contracts, then I have no capacity, no energy to grab that big contract that's going to feed me for a month or two or three or the year. And so the only caveat I have to that minimum contract amount is if it's a pilot to work with an organization that wants to hire you for bigger work. So if they're testing you out and it's very likely that if it goes well, you'll get a larger contract, that's a space where I would say you could break your minimum contract rule, but really try not to, because even in those instances, oftentimes you can make your minimum. So I started setting a minimum contract amount back in my 30s of $5,000 because if I can't earn $5,000 from work, then it really just isn't worth my time. And you look at this lesson time and time again, the 80-20 principle. It's in, I don't even know how many business books, and it's all about spending 80% of your time that yields only 20% of your income. And so it's teaching you to hyper focus on the best 20% of your work, the best 20% of your clients, and flip this paradigm on its head so that you spend more of your time working for fewer clients. Oftentimes, the clients that you're working for with the smaller projects, they actually take up the most of your time. They're often the hardest clients to serve. So spend more of your time looking for and securing relationships with the clients you can do larger work with, and have fewer clients that you just build deeper relationships with, understand the problems that you can solve for. That leads me to actually the third lesson. So I'm going to skip the second one for a second. And that is spending concerted effort, learning and mapping the resources in your community. If you don't know what is already available in your network, in your community, then how are you supposed to understand where you can provide value? I think it's super critical to not only get to know all the players in your region, but understand how we all connect. These are living, breathing ecosystems in every community, and they all have their own personality, they all have their own needs, and they have their own rules of conduct and expectations of how you're going to do business and how you relate to one another. And I think it's important to spend concerted effort learning those rules, learning how to best engage with folks, and always, always look for ways to be collaborative instead of competitive. Because there's always opportunities, if you look for it, of how to be competitive with people who could be a competitor of yours. But if given the opportunity, if you decide to look through the lens of collaboration, even if they're a direct competitor to most folks' eyes, you can say, oh no, actually, we can split this. Or, if I'm a wedding videographer, right? Let's say I am. I'm not, but let's say I am. And working in Bend, Oregon, they have a huge a destination wedding market. And there's going to be times where I need a second or third videographer because the scale of the work is so large. And so you can bring in someone else in your network that's a wedding videographer that you might think they're my competitor. I can't work with them. But from a lens of collaboration, absolutely bring them in. Say, you know what? I value you. I respect you. Your work is fantastic. I would love to bring you in on opportunities when I need some more help. And, if they feel like that makes sense for them to reciprocate, you just opened up a whole new option for additional work through partnership. Always look for those opportunities to partner. And if someone else is in your field, but has an expertise a little bit adjacent to yours, learn how you can leverage that with one another. You might be a little bit better on one side of the house, and they might be a little bit better on the other side. So there's opportunity there to converge those efforts and those specialties. So map the resources in your community. That requires going to networking events, connect with your local city chamber, connect with your economic development agency. If you're like, what did he just say? Look up, what are the economic development agencies in my region, and you'll learn more. See if they have a pub talk or some sort of monthly or quarterly gathering that you can start to attend, and just start learning about who shows up to these things. Just introduce yourself. What do you do? How did you learn about this? I'm new here. I'm just trying to learn the landscape. Teach me. And people will respond well to that. Only thing they won't respond well to is you just going there trying to sell, and tell people what you've built and why they need it. And that's a huge turnoff. But if you're there curious and learning about them and about the organizations that are present, then it's going to go very well for you. Then start to think about where you see gaps. If you see all of these different ecosystems and you notice, I don't see really anything to support small businesses, two or fewer people, and you start asking questions. Hey, is there anything for that? And maybe there is, and you haven't found it yet, and you can get directed to that. And once you really understand the gaps, then you can start to get intentional about your skill set, your offerings, and do any of those align with the gaps in your community so that you can best serve in a way that isn't duplicative of something that already exists. And if there is something that already exists that you're like, oh, it could be so much better if only they fill in the blank, then there's an opportunity there that you're building a relationship to help them develop that if only they. And then you're just absolutely expanding their impact across the people and communities they serve. So those are 2 out of the 3 key pieces. What was the second one? Let's see. Oh yeah, focus. So the second thing I would advise my 20-year-old self is to focus on one project and get real clear about that through the year. So have some staying power. Now, I'm an ideas guy. I will always have ideas. But in order to do something really, really well, and in order for the market to fully blossom on the work that you've done, you've got to give it time. You've got to give it time and concerted effort. Because as I build something, I come up with ideas of how to make it better. And as I deploy the thing I've built, whether it be an educational program or something else, people are using it, I start to get new ideas or feedback from the people that are using it. And then it becomes something bigger and bigger. And so if I don't stay on that task, on that project, I never get to develop it to the full fruition of what it could be. It might shapeshift. I'm sure it will shapeshift actually over the course of that year. But as long as you're focusing on that one project, I think that's the thing I needed to tell my 20-year-old self, because I just was a creator, was just building. And, the second it didn't look shiny anymore, I wanted to go start something else that was new and shiny because it was exciting. But what it did is it really just burned through my reserves, and it actually can lead towards burnout, especially if I wasn't getting the fiscal return on any of these projects. And in my younger 20s, I wasn't as good at figuring out how to match what I was building with who needed it. And really, I that's exactly what I was doing. It's just building what I was inspired to build and then trying to find someone to buy it. And as I got older, I learned, oh no, you need to flip that. Absolutely flip those things in reverse. Learn what your communities need. Learn about procurement, about process, about how the economy works in your region, and then learn how that you can match what they need with the allowable funding and the format that's going to work and best serve the community. And then you can come in and solve all those problems all at once. And so it's seamless and easy to get through and get to a yes. So that's the way I form my work now. And it's more purposeful than ever because people are actually using the products that I'm making, and I'm impacting communities, and I'm building in a way that's very intentional to best serve the communities that I enter, instead of me just working in a silo thinking, well, this is going to be so great. But because there's no depth of perspectives or understanding of how the community works, there can be mismatches and it can fall flat. So that's how I would frame out lessons I would give 20-year-old Shannon. I hope it helps any of you, regardless of your age. I hope these lessons have served you well, and I'm excited to be part of your journey. So let's do this.